Kravis is finally engaged. Did Kanye really leave Kim's SNL set? And Khloe got back with Tristan when? Hey guys, and welcome back to our channel. We're here to discuss the latest episode of the Kardashians on Hulu. But before we get into all of the nonsense, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. And we also have the live chat going if you guys want to share your opinions or any questions. As always, I'm your host, Zachary Reality, joined by the Kardashian stans, Morgan Wright and Allison Van Dam. And this was the episode we have all been waiting for. I gotta know what you guys thought about it.
Yeah, it was my favorite episode so far. So I thought the whole thing, start to finish, was really captivating. I thought all of the sister storylines in this episode were good. There wasn't a dull moment. So far, this one was my favorite episode.
I know. I was expecting Morgan to say that because she's our Kravis expert, our Kravis stan. I thought it was good. I myself, like, just from a selfish, like, loving production side, loved Kim on SNL last week. So I feel like they might be tied in my mind for, like, current favorite episode.
Ooh, okay, so Allison's the Kim girl, Morgan is the Kourtney, and I am the Khloe, which honestly is not a flex on this week's episode. Why, Tristan? But we have to talk about the Kravis proposal because this has been teased for a while. We know this happened last year, but we're finally seeing it on the big screens. Travis proposed to Kourtney on the beach in Santa Barbara with candles, flowers at sunset time, and her family and close friends were able to follow for dinner shortly after. And this caught Kourtney completely by surprise. She had no idea. She was very nonchalant about the whole thing. I don't think she shed a tear. There did become a little bit of conflict, though, when Kim and the sisters questioned Kris Jenner why Kourtney's kids were not there for the proposal while Travis's kids were there. Now, Kris Jenner explained that her kids were too young and that it would have been too much to lie to Scott to get the kids there. So I got to know what you guys think about this. Morgan, why don't you start?
Oh, it's such a hard thing to try to juggle. I feel like Kris really wasn't doing anything malicious. I feel like she and her thought that that was the best way to go about things. Right before we jumped on this live, I actually saw a tweet that Kourtney herself liked, pretty much saying, Kris
Ooh.
should have invited Kourtney's kids, that it wasn't Kris's best decision to leave the kids out of it, and Kourtney liked it. So I guess we know where she stands on that. I feel like I really can understand where Kris was coming from when it comes to Scott, because in order to get the kids there, she had to tell Scott the truth. Otherwise, it would have been really, really bad to lie to him to get them to come over. And then, surprise, the love of your life is now engaged to Travis. So it's really tough. I feel like Kris was in an impossible situation. Somebody would have ended up upset. Kourtney's kids are 12 and younger. So that is young, but I do feel like it is important for the kids to be there for their mom as well. And I do feel bad that they were left out of it.
Yeah, I think we could have created potentially like a hybrid situation. Let's say Travis did want to do this Santa Barbara beach proposal at sunset. Obviously, it was gorgeous. That could have totally been a thing. They could have had their adult time. I just feel like maybe we could have added on, time with the kids, or maybe not had Travis's kids come. So it wasn't like an either or. And maybe they left Santa Barbara and then went and did just like a normal dinner as like two families and celebrated that way. Like, even if they weren't part of the original proposal, which I can, again, to Morgan's point, I can see where Kris is coming from. If they were with Scott that weekend.
So there is a lot to balance, and I think it was hard for Kourtney. As we saw, she was, dealing with the excitement of being engaged to Travis, but she was, worried about her kids back home. And of course, Penelope was crying and wished that she was there. And I mean, it is what it is. I think that they can do another family celebration, when they get back to Calabasas in a few days. This way the kids feel like they're involved. I think it's just also an added layer because it's all over social media. As Scott mentioned later in the episode, they were seeing TikToks about it. So, I mean, when you're the famous family in the world, I mean, there always comes extra complications. However, they're engaged and they're happy, and it seems like everyone is okay with it now. We'll see what happens with the storyline. Now, there did become some conflict with Scott, which we're gonna get into, but I want to talk about the happy moments of Kravis because we're so excited for them. They're engaged. We got to see the Kardashian Barker dynamic, and we got to meet Travis's kids, Landon and Alabama, and we also saw an epic arm wrestle between Landon and Kendall. Morgan, how do you think the Barkers and the Kardashians are going to work out? And I mean, who do you think really won that arm wrestle?
I think it really was pretty close to a tie, but I think Landon kind of beat Kendall at the end. As far as their families blending, I think they'll be just fine. I mean, we know that the Barkers and the Kardashians were neighbors for years. You know, Kourtney and Travis were friends for years. So I feel like anytime you have that much of a really solid foundation, it's going to be pretty effortless. I will say, you know, the one thing that is a little bit of a hiccup for both of them are the exes. I mean, Shanna Moakler, not the biggest Kravis fan. I'm sure Scott, also not the biggest Kravis fan. But I feel like the family dynamic in the house will be great.
Yeah, and Allison, I'm glad that you're back. So feel free to finish your point, and I want to know what your thoughts were of the Kris Jenner of it all. She gave quite the speech.
Kris Jenner, first off, who knows what's happening with my Wi-Fi? This has never been an issue before, but of course, when we need to talk about our favorite family, it acts up. Kris, I think, was so cute. I think she means so well. She is a very sentimental, emotional person. So the fact that Travis, asked Kourtney's dad's permission at his grave, like all of this played into Kris's emotions. But I want to know what your guys' thoughts are on her being like, there's nothing like your eldest getting engaged, because is that not just kind of like a diss to the rest of her children?
I think she says stuff like that a lot. I feel like she's always, like, even the other day, she tweeted, Kim is my favorite daughter. I think she just does stuff like that a lot, and she's super happy, especially because Kourtney never wanted to get engaged, and that was touched on in this episode. Like, she never wanted to get married. She never thought that she would, and she already had 3 kids, and now she's in her 40s, and like all of a sudden she found love later in life. And I loved what Kourtney said. She was like, I never wanted to get married until I met Travis, and that's how it's the one and that you're in love. So I just think that Kris is very emotional and she likes to exaggerate. And, I mean, Kris really, put a lot into planning this proposal. She even got the glam team and she just couldn't remember the kids, but she got the glam team. How important was that the glam team was there, Allison, for Kourtney?
I think the glam team maybe should have been there before the proposal. It felt like odd timing to me, because if I wasn't expecting my proposal, I would have either wanted it right before the proposal, so all those photos had it, or before I sat down to dinner. It just felt like weird timing of they'd already started the dinner portion, and then suddenly Kourtney left and was getting, so like for the second half of dinner, she looked really, really good. I mean, she looks good regardless. I swear she doesn't age, but the timing of that just seemed really odd to me.
Yeah, it's like the dinner already ended and they were about to go to sleep. But maybe they did like a surprise photo shoot or something. I mean, Morgan, any overall thoughts of the Kravis proposal? Do you think it went, as smoothly as possible?
Yeah, I mean, overall, you guys know me. I'm just going to gush about Kravis any chance that I get to. I loved it. I also feel like, some people will say, we didn't really get a lot of the proposal because there wasn't any cameras. I feel like that stays true to Kourtney and her boundaries, because we've heard all about Kourtney's boundaries when it comes to what she wants to film and what she doesn't. I feel like Kourtney has finally found a good balance between keeping certain things private and personal and also sharing things with the entire world. So I'm just glad that we got a piece of it and that she wasn't throwing a fit about filming it like she did the Christmas card.
Seriously, Kourtney seems to be a little bit more laid back this season. And I mean, listen, they know her boundaries now. Now, all of the sisters were worried about Scott and how he was going to react to all of this, specifically Kendall. Kendall actually questioned Kourtney if she had any sympathy for Scott, to which Kourtney replied, he had 5 to 6 years to get over it, and I need to live my life. And Kim shut it down real quick and wanted to save that conversation for tomorrow to let Kourtney and Travis enjoy their night. Allison, what did you think of that sister talk and Kendall being a little bit more outspoken about that than the other sisters?
I think Kendall has a good point, but I'm also with Kim that it just like wasn't the right timing. I think that's a perfect thing. Sisters, I have a sister I'm very close to. You call each other out on things. You encourage people to be better people, but not on the night of your engagement. Like bringing up an ex on the night of your engagement is just such, I think, not the right time whatsoever. And that is a time to be happy and celebrate and let them know how much you love them. So I was honestly glad that Kim kind of shut it down, because I was watching it and I wanted to shut it down. I was like, Kendall, this is not the time to be talking about Scott. We've been talking about Scott for 20 seasons and it's an engagement night. Pipe down. We'll deal with it tomorrow.
Yeah, it wasn't the time to talk about Scott Kendall, but here on this panel, it is now the time to talk about Scott. So we're going to get into it because Khloe went back to Calabasas the next day to check up on Scott and the kids. And when Khloe made it back, she saw Scott, and Scott actually said he was doing okay. He said that he felt like Kourtney and Travis were already married, basically, so it wasn't that much of a difference to him. And he also felt a huge weight lifted off of his shoulder. Scott was always concerned about, Kourtney's happiness. He felt like he had to take care of her for years, and now he feels relieved. He was more just concerned about how the kids were going to feel, especially because Penelope really wanted to be there, and the dynamic of the family is now shifting because of Travis's involvement. Morgan, how do you think the conversation went between Khloe and Scott? What were your takeaways?
I just love the dynamic between Khloe and Scott. Those two together are not in like a romantic way, you guys. I know people want it, but they truly do love and care about each other so much, just like they are real family. So I feel like I looked forward to that interaction between the two of them. Do I necessarily believe everything that Scott said about Kourtney? No, I think I was kind of, on Khloe's side where she was saying, you're just kind of being like this out of spite. However, I do think that he was probably relieved, because when there's a sense of uncertainty, you start to worry about things that never really end up happening. And I feel like when somebody's just dating your ex, you don't really know what to expect. At least now Scott knows what to expect moving forward. That they are getting married, that it is the end of the road completely for Scott and Kourtney. And so he can move on freely without the pressure of Kourtney in the back of his head, and hopefully find his happily ever after as well.
Yeah, maybe Scott will be next season. I think we all want Scott to find love with someone that is, age appropriate. So now maybe that this has, released his, burdens, as he said, that this could be an opportunity for him. And I hope that he does find love, because he does deserve it. And maybe with Khloe, because their chemistry is undeniable. I mean, you can't deny the flirting. It's constant. But next week we're going to see Travis and Scott in the same room. Allison, how do we think that's going to go?
I just hope it goes well, because as Khloe said in her, I think it was her testimonial when she was talking about her conversation with Scott, she was like, it doesn't matter what's going on behind closed doors, so long as there is a smile and you're putting on a good face for the kids. And I think they need to be your priority no matter what. Like, put all of your grudges, put all of your feelings, put all of, whatever you're harboring resentment about, put that aside, because we're here as a family. And I genuinely think if Scott wants to continue getting invited to things, being a part of the family, he's going to have to make that a priority, because no one's going to keep opening the door to him if he comes in with a bad attitude or starts getting aggressive or starts making comments. Like, if he knows what's good for him, he needs to be neutral. He needs to try and maybe be happy for them. But if he can't, just like do his own thing in the background, be calm, be pleasant, take care of his kids, and then we'll all be happy.
Yeah, and it seems like, in the preview for next week, he's having a talk with Kris Jenner about that. So next week is going to be exciting. But let's move on to Kim and Kanye, because we can honestly talk about Kravis all day. Now, Kim revealed, and I did not know this, because obviously the SNL thing was filmed a while ago, but apparently Kanye left Kim's set mid-monologue. So on a hike with Khloe, Kim shared how her and Kanye weren't speaking because he was upset about Kim's monologue during Saturday Night Live. Now, this is what Kim said. Now, Kim also made fun of everybody, including herself, but Kanye took it personally. Kim said something along the lines of, I married the richest black man in America, so when you think of why I divorced him, it's because of his personality. And then Kanye leaves in the middle of the set. Now, I don't know if Kim knew that or if she found that out after, but that must have distract her. I mean, in some sense, obviously she has to keep it professional. It's called Saturday Night Live. But Morgan, what did you think when you heard about this information? This is a missing tool we did not know.
I actually did know that he left in the middle of it. I
Oh,
remember,
okay.
the next day there were all these different, because everyone was surprised that he was there, in general. We were like,
Mhm.
wait, what? He's there. And then I remember, the thing coming out about him leaving in the middle. And then it came out, that he was upset that she kissed Pete. So I thought that he left. It was confusing on
Ooh.
whether or not he left in the middle of the monologue or in her first sketch with Pete, on the carpet ride. So I guess now we get the full picture. Was he being too sensitive? I mean, I think so. Like you said, it's Saturday Night Live. Even in the little huddle beforehand, they were like, please, nobody take anything that I say personally. Like, this is just supposed to be funny. I mean, she called Corey a gold
Mhm.
digger. She made fun of herself for having a sex tape. She made fun of Khloe. She made fun of
Mhm.
everybody. So I feel like sometimes Kanye might look for things to get upset about, like him being upset that she called him a rapper. Come on, like out of everything. And I think
Yeah.
Khloe had an amazing point when she said, all the times Kim could have been mad at Kanye over the past however many years for things that he has said publicly that is way worse than her making a joke on Saturday Night
Mhm.
Live. So I feel like Kanye was just picking a fight at this point.
Yeah, but I think that the Kanye's thing is that she said divorced when he never
Mhm.
signed the papers, and the proper word he wanted her to use was divorcing. So honestly, I think that Kanye was just sensitive because he hasn't accepted the fact that they are getting officially divorced. So I think that is what really triggered him. Allison, what was your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I didn't know he left. So then when she was saying he did, I assumed it had to do with maybe the Pete of it all, but then it was clear that it was the monologue. And then I was thinking, oh, it's because she mentioned the only reason she was getting divorced is because of his personality. And then we dove into it and it was no, because I called him a rapper and he's so much more than that. And I said divorce, and he wanted her to say filing for divorce. Like he wanted that verb in there, like
Mhm.
nothing having been finished. Filing was the only thing he wanted her to say, which again just goes back to the point of he can't fully accept that this is happening and he's probably still holding out hope. That's why he flew across the country to get this laptop from Ray J and flying
Computer.
back with it. But I hope for her sake, like I've heard from people who have done SNL and been part of it, like it's so small back there and it's so rushed and it's so chaotic that I hope she had like didn't even have a second to note the fact that he left, because I wouldn't have wanted that to throw her off of her game. But maybe the fact that it's such a rush process and such a tiny little stage, she like didn't even think twice about it. And good for her for still just like living her life. And we saw her go to that after party and she was still making the most of it. She was making connections. She was, having fun. So good for her for not letting it get to her and just, I mean, it's Kanye. What are you going to do?
Yeah, when you're in that zone, you just have to like focus on what you got to do. And that's exactly what Kim did. Now, in regards to the computer that Kanye, got for Kim, now there has been some online chatter with social media where Ray J ended up DMing Kim and posted the screenshots. Morgan, can you kind of tell us the updates of this? Because I know you were all on top of it.
Yeah, honestly, it's very complicated. But long story short, Ray J is upset that this is being brought up again. The same as why Kim is upset about it. In the show, she's like, "These are my kids. I don't want them to know." He's like, "I also have kids. I also have a family, and your family that's on reality TV keeps bringing this up and giving it new life." So he kind of went on a truth bombing, I guess you could say. He kind of threw Kris and Kim under the bus, saying that it was their idea all along, that Kim and Ray J signed a contract for her to release it. He also said that he does not have a second copy, that Kim is the one that actually has the second copy, and that it's in a Nike box under her bed. I mean, I have no idea if any of that is true. But like you said, he did post the screenshots asking Kim, like, why are you doing this? And she responded in what seems like a very Kimberly-esque response, very polite, very understanding. So it sounds like the way that she talks. But obviously, is there really a way for us to know if those DMs are real? I don't know.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. I mean, Kim also did bring up the point that it was Ray J's manager who was the one that brought it up. It's not like Kim wanted this to be a storyline and, get talked about. Clearly, she was distraught over the fact that this was like ruining her life. So, I mean, let's just blame Ray J's manager, and I guess we still have to thank Kanye for saving the computer. This can all be put to rest now. Let's move on to Khloe and Tristan, because I was pretty shocked to hear in this episode that she actually took him back at the time, and that's why Tristan ended up flying in for the Kravis proposal, because him and Khloe were officially back together. Now Khloe says that Tristan was working on himself. He's been to loads of therapy and has made tremendous efforts for a really long time. She loves him and she loves having him home with True. Now, while all of this is airing on Hulu, Khloe did take to Twitter and tweeted on last night's episode, "We know how this aged, lol. Oh, if a girl only knew." So she's watching it back and cringing. Allison, what do you think she meant by these tweets?
I mean, I think we all know what she meant by these tweets. Everything that's come to light since then of Tristan becoming someone else's baby daddy. Like now, Khloe is fully done with him. She knows there's no redeeming qualities. And I say, like, kudos to Khloe for being able to look back at this and kind of laugh at herself. And I think it just makes her even more relatable. Like, I've watched girlfriends go through this before where they're like, he's changed and we're working on it. And, you know, I've watched people break up and get back together. And sometimes it's true. They do work and, you know, you can really move on and become different people and have a great life. And other times they keep falling back into old habits. And so Tristan is just one of those people that keeps falling back into bad habits. And I'm done that Khloe is finally done, hopefully. God only knows. But I think these tweets are even more of an indication that, you know, she sees what we've all been seeing for a long time now. And if we ever see Tristan on our screens again, it's going to be as True's father and not Khloe's boyfriend.
Yeah, Morgan, what do we know about the current relationship status of Khloe and Tristan? Like, obviously they're done and they're never getting back together, right? Do we think they're friends? Like, what do you think's going on now?
I think at the end of the day, Khloe will always put True above any feelings that she has about Tristan. So I feel like they probably have a good co parenting relationship. I mean, even when Tristan cheated on Khloe, while she was in the hospital giving birth to True, she still allowed him to come in the room to be there for that moment because she was thinking about what her daughter would, you know, see from that day years from now. So I feel like above all, Khloe knows that she has to get along with Tristan in order to have a healthy childhood for her daughter, True. I don't think that she will ever get back together with Tristan. I feel like having another child with another woman is the ultimate betrayal. I also think that if those leaked Snapchat messages were real from Tristan, the way he talked to Marley Nichols is also disgusting. So I feel like Khloe just deserves so much better. And I know a lot of people don't necessarily understand how she kept giving him so many chances. But look, at the end of the day, just from my opinion from the outside, Tristan's pretty manipulative and he clearly has a way to win people over, to get people to trust him. You know, he's clearly very charming. Otherwise, all of these women wouldn't fall into this trap that he has because it's not the first time that he's done it. Khloe's not the first. She probably won't be the last. So I just, for the people that are a little bit critical of Khloe, give her a little bit of grace. Maybe you've never had to deal with a narcissist before, but I have. And it's not that easy to just get away from them, especially when you share a child with them.
And it also seems like Khloe and Tristan get along. Like, it seems like they actually have a good friendship. It just seems like the problem is that Tristan can't keep it in his pants and is just like wants to play around on the side. It seems like he loves having Khloe as his main piece, but he just loves having side pieces as well. And I don't know if like that's going to be a thing forever. You know, we thought that it was just something he was doing in his 20s at the time, but now he's in his 30s. Is this going to be a thing in his 40s, his 50s? Like, will Tristan ever not want to have multiple side pieces? I don't know, but it seems like Khloe has finally put her foot down, especially by these tweets that she can make fun of herself. So it's just a little cringy to watch it back because we know like what happened, and I guess we'll hear about it next season. It's frustrating because their press is just like so everywhere, and then it's like we have to watch it 6 months later. I wish they could find a way to do Kardashians live. Allison, do you think that would make a difference? Is there any way we can make that happen, or does that really not bother you as much?
It doesn't bother me as much because when we see the headlines, obviously we see the headlines. It's like any reality show, but then we know that within a few months we're going to have the deep dive. We're going to get all the footage. We're going to get all the questions answered, hopefully. And we even talked about that with, you know, Selling Sunset and Jason and Chriselle breaking up. we went into season 5 knowing that they were going to break up, yet we all watched them in their relationship, and it was interesting to see how that worked because we never got to see that in the headlines that, go viral. But I don't know if they wanted a quicker turnaround. I think they would really have to amp up production. We'd have to be paying a lot of money for some like overnight editors to get all this out. It'd be a very interesting concept, but I definitely think they'd have to be putting a lot more money into more filming crews, more editors, all that good stuff.
It just prolongs the amount of time we have to talk about Tristan. Like, our next season, is it going to be Tristan had the baby? It's just really prolongs things. But this episode ended with Kourtney and Travis in the fertility office as Travis was preparing to give a sample sperm as Kourtney was doing her egg retrieval. They want to have a baby and create something together. Allison, you're our expert here. You have a sister that's a doctor. Can you kind of explain the scene and like what are they trying to do? Is this how you make a baby?
The confidence that Zach has in my medical expertise is so humbling. Honestly, we talked about Christine missing the Selling Sunset reunion. Suddenly I was a COVID expert. So I'm just putting it out there that I am not an expert whatsoever. But from how I understand it, basically, we watched in this episode, they're doing an egg retrieval. So they're going in, they're evaluating the eggs. We saw the ultrasound. He found one. He was talking about follicles, different sizes, stuff like that. Basically, they're going to go in, retrieve the egg, and then we need a sample from Travis, a sperm sample, which is why they give him a tube, and they were encouraging them to get it on in the room. And from what my understanding is, they'll then take the egg from Kourtney. The doctor was saying too, like the follicle can result in multiple eggs, so they're just like trying to get a good one, add the sperm together, combine them to make an embryo. And then they're going to basically like reinsert it into Kourtney and hope that it takes and is like a healthy pregnancy, because then it's like a much, higher likelihood than just them having sex and trying to do it naturally. Because she's older, she has less eggs to choose from. It's just like such a low likelihood that one of his sperm meets those eggs. So it's just using science to get the best egg, get a sperm from Travis, combine them yourselves to make sure that they meet, and then hopefully putting it back into Kourtney and takes off into a baby.
You got to give yourself more credit, Allison. You know exactly what you're talking about. I could never explain that. So, I mean, you truly are our medical professional here, and we have much kudos to you. Now, Morgan, as our Kravis expert, as I was just mentioning, like this happened like 6 months ago. So we know what's going on now? Are they gonna have a baby? Did they move on from that vision? Is this possibly for a storyline? What do you think?
I think that they will eventually have a baby. Look, they're far too in love to not procreate. I feel like, they're all over each other 24/7. So who knows when or where it's going to happen. But yeah, I don't know. I don't like to speculate on whether or not Kourtney is pregnant right now, especially from earlier episodes in the season. We know that she is obviously going through IVF. She said it's making her go through early menopause. It's making her gain weight. So if she is having a baby, I will wait until she tells us herself, because I just don't want to speculate, but I really hope that they do. They're so in love, and they would love a little offspring so much, and we need a little punk rock baby in the world.
We do need that punk rock baby, and we need that punk rock wedding. I mean, she could carry the baby herself. She could do a surrogacy. They could adopt. They can get a dog or a cat. Like, we really don't know what's next for them, but we know that they are committed to each other. And I mean, this was our recap. So, as usual, I gotta know your MVP and your LVP of the week. That's your most valuable player and your least valuable player. Allison, why don't you start us off?
This is the hardest question because I don't know who to blame for the kids not being there. Is it just circumstance? Like, is there no one to
Kris.
blame for that? Because that is just the most heartbreaking thing. Maybe I'll say LVP is Tristan
Kourtney
for
blames
like
Kris.
Yeah, I know. It's just I don't know, but I think I'll go with Tristan because he's stringing our girl Khloe on along once again, and we all know he doesn't have the purest of intentions. So watching this is so hard to watch her be so optimistic, to watch them try and make it work again. So I'm going to give LVP to Tristan, and I'm going to give MVP to Travis because he planned this beautiful proposal.
Ooh.
He's getting the tour bus down to San Diego. He's holding Kourtney's hand throughout this whole appointment. Like, he really is the most supportive fiance, now that we can say that, not even boyfriend. So my two guys will be my
Ooh.
LVP and MVP.
Nice. Morgan, what about
Yeah,
you?
okay. I think obviously my MVP is Kourtney. I mean, we all knew that that was going to be the answer. I'm just glad that she found a way to still bring us all along for the ride, even though we know she's had this love hate relationship with filming. So I'm glad that they were just able to find that balance and that we were able to see at least the after party of it. Let's see. My LVP, Kendall. I don't care about her arm wrestling, Landon, and that's the only thing she did in the entire episode. Don't come, Kendall. We don't care about you and your arm
Well,
wrestling.
and
I'm
she called
sorry.
out
Kendall and Kylie. I
she
can't.
called out Kourtney too. She was like, "You don't
True.
do you have any empathy for Scott?"
Well, and that makes her the double
True.
LVP because right now it's not about Scott, Kendall. It's about Travis and Kourtney.
Well, I think that the MVP definitely goes for a tie between Landon and Alabama. Kourtney's or Travis's kids because they gave us, if you guys don't remember, the TikTok of the dinner when the proposal happened. And that
They
is kind
did.
of how we were able to really get the inside scoop of the roses and figure everything out. I don't know if they got in trouble for that later with Mr. Travis Barker, but that's how we got the real tea. So Alabama and Landon are my MVPs, and my least valuable player is going to go to Kris Jenner. I think that at the end of the day, Kourtney really wanted her kids there, and I know that it was complicated and that it would have been hard, and there could have been a lot of crying, and maybe that would have ruined the proposal. But if Kourtney is still liking tweets about it this many months later, she probably felt a little bit of a way about it, and I'm sure everything's fine. And we know Kris Jenner has the biggest heart ever, but I mean, listen, it happened, and they're not going to recreate the proposal. They might have multiple weddings, but who knows? And that is all we have for today. Morgan, do you have any hot take for next week, or Allison, that you guys want to share?
What were they even teasing next week?
Travis and
Oh,
Scott
okay.
going to the same dinner.
It's gonna be
So,
fine. I mean, they're grown-ups. Like, this isn't Scott getting drunk and shoving money in the waiter's mouth in Las Vegas like he did 10 years ago. Like I feel like they're all
mhm,
grown adults. It will be totally fine.
Yeah, I wouldn't
yeah,
be surprised,
same.
honestly, if next week is a little bit of a filler episode, just because this past week was the big proposal. And I feel like sometimes they hit these waves of an episode of prepping for the next one and laying all these like clues and foundations and then it really happening. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if next week is a little slower, but I'm with Morgan. I don't think it's going to be a big blowout fight because I think Scott doesn't want to lose what's now his one and only family.
Yeah, but I'm sure they'll edit it and make it more intense than it actually is. We all know how the music works and everything. So I'm excited for that and looking forward to seeing it. We want to hear from you guys. What were your thoughts on the Kardashians' newest episode on Hulu? And let us know your predictions for next week in the comments down below. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell before you guys go. As always, I'm your host, Zachary Reality, joined by Morgan Wright and Allison Van Dam. Our social medias are on the screen right now, so be sure to give us a follow. Come say hello. Thank you guys so much for watching today's episode, and we'll be sure to see you guys in the next one. Bye.